Hey everybody, it's me, Language Bay, and you're now rocking with the best. Um, Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, if you're new, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell for each and every time that I drop that heat. So today we're with Adrienne. How you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to share your story. So, the first thing I wanted to do was ask your location and your heritage.
Okay, my current location is Montgomery, Alabama. I just relocated from Laurel, Maryland in October,
Hmm.
and my heritage is blackety black, black, black.
Oh my gosh! In my mind, I was thinking like, I hope she says blackity black, 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 like literally. And I love that. I
Literally.
love that because I love when people come on here and they're like, my heritage is blackity black, 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 because I think it's very important that we show people who are blackity black 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 but love languages.
That's right.
So I'm very
That's
excited,
right.
very excited. Okay, good.
'Cause I could have said I'm medium black, I'm light black, I'm dark black, I'm off black, I'm black, black, black.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. So what is your native language?
Native language, of course, my parents are both American, so English. But for me, I also consider German my native language
Hmm.
because I went over to Germany when I was very, very young. So I was learning the language as a child before I even started school at 3 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's why I love to ask that question because people always just assume, oh, your native language. Because the last person I interviewed, I asked her because I just never make assumptions. I'm like, what's your native language? And she said, my native language is Hebrew. And I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting her to say that. So you just never really know.
You just never know. And a lot of people will say, well, that's not really your native language. It is because at 2 and 3 years old, I was learning English and German. So I
Right.
spoke in both.
Right.
Yes, I heard American English, growing up, but when you go over there so young, I heard both.
Right.
So I spoke both.
No. And I agree with you. I have a friend when I was living in Germany. She's half German and half American. Her grandmother actually lived up the street from us,
Hmm.
and German's her native language as well. But
Yes,
if you talk to her now, because she's been in the U.S. for so long, you would never know. Like
right.
sometimes she even tells me like, "Oh my God," like she was like, "I remember when we met and you couldn't speak German," and she said, "Now it's the opposite. You're fluent in German and I can't even speak a lick of it, and it's my native language."
And it's funny because it being my second language, being so young, I will never forget that when we came back to the States, I was here maybe a year. I actually had to relearn it all over again when I went back. And even now, sometimes I haven't spoken fluently in years, but I'll hear it and I can immediately start speaking it. And people are always like, oh, you sound like a native speaker. You don't have an accent. And that's always been interesting to me because I don't have any type of accent because I grew up the way I did. So
So where did you go? You say you went to Germany when you were 2 and 3. Where was the first stop?
our first stop, okay, so my father was active duty military. My mother was a civilian, but she was a civilian that rose up in the ranks and was usually um, the commander's secretary, things like that on the bases we were on.
Hmm.
So our first stop was Frankfurt, Germany.
Hmm.
And then we stayed there for several years. The one thing I do remember is when it was my mother's turn for our tour, we always lived in the communities. We never lived on base. We lived on base with my dad, but not with my mother. So I got the best of both worlds. So we would stay there. We stayed there for 2 years with my dad. My mother had a 3-year assignment, so we moved off base into the community. And so we were in Frankfurt, and we lived around Frankfurt for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we went to Kaiserslautern.
Mm-hmm.
Then we stayed there for 3 years. I
Mm-hmm.
came back we came back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We were there
Mm-hmm.
for about a year and a half. Um, and then we went back, but this time it was with my mother, and we went to a place that was very high up near the Holland border. It was a first base of its kind, and I'll never forget. It wasn't really a base; it was one building, and
Oh
that was
my
Rheinberg.
gosh.
Yeah, that
You
was in
said where?
Rheinberg. Rheinberg.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to international school in Kalkar, which was an Air Force base,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed there for about 6 years. And I'll never forget when we first moved there. Um, we were staying in a hotel because they didn't have housing because it really wasn't a base.
Right.
And I would go downstairs every day to the restaurant and just sit and listen to people talk.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the hotel had a grandchild, and she and I would play. And at first we didn't understand each other because that far north they had never really seen Americans, and especially Black Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So she was just fascinated. And one day I took her to meet my mom when we were in the hotel, and she and I were just talking back and forth. And my mom was like, what's going on? I speak German. What do you mean? Where'd you learn that? I said, sitting in the restaurant. And that's how it started. And so we lived up there
Wow.
for several years. I went to international school in Bonn. I went to
Mm-hmm.
international school in um, Dusseldorf. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, we went to intermediate school, which is what they called school then, in Kalkar. So I was all over the place.
Wow. So when you went to the international school, because I
Hmm.
know that I met somebody before that went to the international school in Munich. So how, if you don't mind me asking, I'm just trying to envision. So did I'm guessing the military paid for it or
Okay. Yeah, the military did pay for it because they didn't want to build schools. So we
right?
basically had one of those big luxury buses, and
Uh-huh.
they drove us
Yes.
over there every day. Yes,
Yes, we
yes.
had that
Because
too.
yeah, because it was about an hour and 15-minute ride.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went to the one in Dusseldorf, um, I went to the American International School in Dusseldorf, but
Okay.
even though it was called AISD, I went to school with, ambassadors' kids and
Yeah.
sheiks, and um, and I remember some of my classes weren't even in English; they were in French or German. And but there was a lot of us from the American bases because at that point Rheinberg was getting bigger. We also had Calcar, and that was the only high school, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all bused over to Dusseldorf. So those hour-long rides in the morning and afternoon, we would have a ball, we'd sleep, we eat, we play
Yeah.
music. Yeah, so it was like a party. It was like a party bus going to school every day.
Yeah.
And I went to school there, and I think that was seventh, eighth, and ninth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I left in the middle of my ninth grade year to come back to the States.
Okay.
But it was
That's
very
so
interesting.
crazy. Like I
It is.
had kind of the same experience, except they didn't pay for us to go to the international school. What they did was because we lived in Schweinfurt, there was no high school. So
Right.
basically, what they did was because what they would have to do is they would either have had to bus us to Bamberg or they would have had to bus us to Würzburg because those are the next two closest.
Right.
So they ended up busing us to Würzburg High School.
Okay.
So we had
Okay.
the
Yeah.
same thing. It was like a coach bus, and then we would
Yeah.
ride that every day. It was like an hour change.
Exactly. And I used to love it. I used to love it because when we finally found a house, this was
Hmm.
the greatest part of my childhood. We lived over a meat market.
Really?
Next door, yes. So I'll never forget, every Tuesday morning they were slaughtering those pigs and cows for our daily meat.
Oh
I
my
became a
God.
vegetarian not too long after that,
I'm
but I
sure.
lived next door to a bakery, around the corner from a conditorij, and an ice cream shop, and across the street from, I don't remember what it was called, but um, it was like our little fast food place.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, they would go next door and get my fresh brötchen, and I'd have, Gewürzwurst und Käse mit meinem Brötchen, or, all those things.
Oh my
And every
gosh.
morning my breakfast was made for me fresh, you know, and I miss that so much. But yeah, we lived over a meat market.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was interesting.
Yeah, I have to tell you, you do have a very good accent when you're pronouncing the German words. Like seriously, you don't have the typical American accent at all. So
Thank you.
yeah, really, really. Like people aren't just saying that. Because I know sometimes people say things and you're like, huh, but no, really, you do. So I can see why they're amazed when you start speaking.
Yeah, and here in the States, it's even funnier because I used to live in DC and work in DC, and I'd be on the metro, and the minute I heard German, my ears would perk up, and I'm
Uh-huh.
looking around, and they'd start speaking, and then I'd speak, and they'd look at me like, and everybody on the train is looking at me like, and then they start talking. Oh my God, you sound so great! You have no accent, and it's like, yeah, you know, das kommt von Lernen als ein Junge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what just happens when it's your native, so to speak, tongue. I used to think I was German. You couldn't tell me any different.
Oh
I
my
thought I was German.
goodness.
Listen, because even though I went to international schools, we lived in the communities. My mother made sure that we lived in the communities. And
Mhm.
I did everything they did. I played in the tambakor, I played the flute, and I all my friends were German. I had American friends too, and they'd come over, and my house was always the party house. So, I'll never forget one time at the international school, I had a couple of best friends, and at one time we had a slumber party. I was the Black American. There was a girl named Nadine McCracken who was the white American. There was a Italian girl, Anna Sirois, and then there was two Italian girls. There was a Japanese girl named Eiko Kawai,
Mhm.
and we all just would hang out. And it was funny because they didn't really speak a whole lot of English. Eiko, I remember, spoke English, but Stephanie and Anne, they didn't speak as much. Oh, and there was a Dutch girl.
Mhm.
Her name was Katya.
Mhm.
And we used to always have a ball because they'd speak in their native tongues, we'd speak in ours, but we understood each other.
Yeah.
And so at one time, listening to all these languages, I could fluently understand Italian, Dutch, Arabic, Japanese, because that's all I heard. And then, I lost it along the way coming back to the States, but anytime I hear it, I can usually pick up the language, pick up the accent, pick up the dialect. And I'm so grateful for that because, like you said, I don't have an accent. So when I speak other languages, I usually sound pretty native, which in and of itself I love because as a Black woman,
Mhm.
it shocks people, it surprises people,
Mhm.
but it empowers me to know that I can communicate and be understood despite the color of my skin.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so powerful. I think that's so amazing. I'm so like, I don't know, you probably can see it on my face. I like have so much joy on my face just listening to your
You too.
experience because it's amazing and I love when we get those kind of experiences. It makes me so happy because there's so many kids who don't, they don't
Yes,
get the enrichment in their life like this. So it makes me so
yes.
happy, and then it's like you know, people, you would never know that. Like, you know, you would never know. And it's like, I'm so glad I'm doing this because I get to show the Black girl magic that everybody seems to overlook every day.
Exactly. And the one thing I can say, that's awesome that you're doing this. I appreciate it so much. And the one thing I can say is I didn't stop with my languages when I came back.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, when I came to high school, um, I was too far advanced to take the classes. So they just, let me teach classes. I mean, my German teacher would be like, Adrienne, come on up here and teach for today. And I'm like, okay.
Really?
Yes, yes. And then when I went to went to college, my goal was to be an interpreter for the United Nations.
Hmm.
So I continued my French and German.
Hmm.
I did take some Spanish, but I really wasn't into it. And it's also very difficult because I speak French and German, so everything comes out in one of those languages.
Hmm.
Um, so I went on to college. I earned a bachelor's with a minor in foreign languages because, again, I was too far advanced. They couldn't really teach me anything. But
Right.
I was fortunate enough that I got an internship with the State Department. And so I went to the Foreign Service Institute.
God.
Yes. And I started an internship there. I was supposed to be there for I think 4 months. They asked to extend my contract, and I wound up staying for about a year and
Hmm.
working there with some great, great native native speakers. I was, I think, one of the few Americans um, that was there teaching, and I was allowed to work with the French and the German and the Spanish and the Portuguese teachers when they were teaching, those coming through the State Department, the ambassadors and things like that, the languages. And that was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I would still get it. I was the only Black there. So it was always I'd walk into a room or come into a room and I'd start speaking, and it was like I was like E.F. Hutton. You know that old cartoon,
Yes.
everybody listens. Right. It was like that. So I would start speaking and everybody's like, and it's like, okay, y'all can continue talking. I want to have a conversation. I don't want to hear myself talk. But
Uh-huh.
it's always shocking. And still to this day, I'm, almost 50, and I try every chance I get. I taught both of my children German. They don't speak it as fluently as I do, but I still have a niece that lives in Germany, so when she comes to visit, we try to go visit. Um, both my kids took French and
Hmm.
Spanish in school, so they have the best of both worlds, all worlds.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like trying not to cry. I'm like so happy to hear this story. Seriously, I'm
Oh,
so happy to hear this. You have no idea. It's like I think this is like the sixth or seventh interview I've done so far. And it's just like it makes me so happy because it's like,
I know.
you know?
It's and the thing about it is, thank you for this opportunity. I've never really fully told my story. People that know me growing up knew a little bit, but unfortunately, some of the jobs or people I've had in my life, because I have lived so many different experiences. I mean, I could tell you stories. Some friends used to tease me. They're like, "You're the Forrest Gump of our time," you know, because I was able to work in, not only Foreign Service Institute, but I worked for Greenpeace. I went on to do voter education with Youth Vote 2000 and Black Youth Vote and the National Coalition. Then I worked for my church. I've done retail. I've done restaurants. I've done, just so many amazing things. In 1996, I worked the Olympics. I was there during the bombing.
Oh
And
wow.
I was able to run with the torch, and I was there as a peacekeeper. So I was also an interpreter in the streets for the Olympics.
Wow.
So my language skills have never gone away, but the experiences that I think my growing up and the ability to adapt to different situations allowed me to just branch out and never have any fear. And that's what I tell people all the time. Well, how can you learn to? It's so hard. there's no place for fear when there's something you want to do.
Yeah.
And the experiences that it'll bring when you travel, when you meet people, that you can actually speak to them in their language
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly satisfying. And, America is the only country that doesn't have an official language. And we have so many people here. There's no reason not to take the opportunity to learn another language, even if it's just for your own backyard. It's rewarding, it's enriching. It shows that you have an ability to adapt and love other cultures and people like you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that I tell my people all the time. Oh, I'm too old. You're never too old. You're never too young. You're never too stupid. You're never too lazy. You're never too anything, because we are enough. And as a Black woman, I tell people all the time, all the experiences I've had, I am enough. I was enough when I spoke German. I was enough when I spoke French. I was enough when I spoke English. I'm going to always be enough. So
Wow.
don't you dare cry. You're not gonna have me on TV on camera crying.
No, okay, I'm gonna hold it together, but this is amazing. Oh my gosh. All right, so you already touched on it. Oh my gosh. You talked about some of the things you do professionally. What are you currently doing? Oh no, you got muted. Hold on. Oh, there you go.
Had reevaluate. I was in politics then, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I had to reevaluate and say, what do I really want to do? At
Mm-hmm.
that point, I had been cooking a lot, and I had decided to start a business, and this was back in 2001, 2002, when personal chefs weren't very popular or known.
Mm-hmm.
And so I researched it. I did not want to work in restaurants anymore. I had done that. I didn't want to be gone 24/7. I didn't want to create other people's menus. So
Right.
I became a personal chef and a caterer. And I was fortunate enough that at the time I was selling Mary Kay. I'm one of those people that any job I've probably had it. And my director for Mary Kay had a large family, her husband and three, but she was a sales director, and her husband was the vice president for BP. So she was one of my first clients that I would cook for once a month, and then I just branched out from there. I had clients that I did once a week. I did clients every 2 weeks. I did clients a month. I did special events. My biggest break with my business came when my cousin at the time, Nicole Hawkins, was the public relations media director for the Washington Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough that one of the players, of course, it happened really strange. It was Thanksgiving Day. They were coming back from a game, and um, he wanted somebody to cook him Thanksgiving dinner. Well, she calls me, and I'm like, well, I can't. I'm feeding my own family today, but I'll meet with him. I was fortunate enough to get him as a client for about 2.5 years.
Oh
And
wow.
I had other clients that were players, and that really opened a new door for me, where I was able to help a friend out who helped and did the housekeeping for me, Stephanie Wilder, and we expanded that business. I was doing catering events for my former job, which was the Department of Recreation in
Mm-hmm.
Montgomery County. And so I blossomed, I grew, I flew, and for years that was my main business was, excuse me, cooking for people, for events, for small parties, for mothers, new mothers, and I continued that until I also worked for my church at the time, running their cafe, and I was part of a mentoring program with them. And so for many, many years, that's what I did full time while raising my children. My kids would come with me to, when they weren't in school, they would come with me to clients' houses. They learned very early on how to unpack mommy's car, put groceries away, And I continued that until, unfortunately, I had two back-to-back accidents, a slip and fall and a car accident. So
Oh
I
my
messed up my
God.
body pretty bad. It's okay. God is good. God is good. And so I stopped doing it full time around 2011, 2012. I
Okay.
still do it occasionally,
Mhm.
and actually in the process now of starting my own interactive cooking show, cooking class. So, and that
Yes.
starts tomorrow, actually. So that's what I do. I also do political work. I just finished doing a campaign for Team Orange, New Jersey, who they were running for mayor and councilwoman, three candidates.
Mhm.
That ended actually yesterday. The election was yesterday. One of our candidates did win. So I
Yay.
do also political consulting work, advising where I can.
Mhm.
Um, I'm hoping to use my languages again here soon. I did do some translation for this election, so I'm, getting back into using my languages in my everyday life.
Okay. All right. Man, that's great. I oh, this will be out by the time this is out. The interactive cooking show will have already happened. Are you going to
Yes.
have more? Is it going to be a regular thing or is it going
It
to be?
Yes, it is going to be a regular thing. I'm going to try right now to do once a week. And actually tomorrow I'm teaching ways to cook foolproof salmon,
Mhm.
tricolor peppers and green beans, and Brussels sprouts.
Ooh.
Next week I'm doing a vegetarian. The following, because people always ask me about salmon. I don't know why it's so hard for other people to cook salmon.
It
But people
it
people have a
it
problem with
is.
it.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I have tips and tricks that I use, and I also belong to a Facebook group where we go live in there. And I was fortunate enough to go live last week, and I taught them some things that they hadn't really thought about. So I'm hoping to do that with my show as well,
Mhm.
and continue whether I want to do a food and wine pairing. I just want to broaden our horizons,
Right.
because food, like languages, can open so many doors. It's like, and food is the language of the soul. So all of my languages tie in together because food is love. Languages feed the soul. Food feeds the soul. And I just want to enrich people's lives by sharing what I know.
Right. Okay. So then, yeah, so I'll be sure to get your information so that I can put it in the description box that's going to be below this video.
Yay! Thank
Mm.
you.
Yes, yes, no problem. All righty. And so, so now, also your level of education. I know you said you did an internship. So where did you study and all that good stuff?
Right. I have a Bachelor of Arts from Troy University in Troy, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tricky because my major is considered political science with a concentration in international affairs. But I
Mm-hmm.
also got a certificate, a degree in foreign languages and theater arts. So I was also an actress. That was my other love.
Oh,
And I
wow.
Yeah, and I also studied at the National Conservatory of Dramatic Arts in DC. So yeah, I've done a little bit of everything. See, growing up in Europe, I had the opportunity to also model and act and things like that, both in German and in English. So it was really, really an enriching experience for my life, because I think growing up the way I did, with the different cultures and languages and people around me, like I said, I had no fear because everything was open to me. And honestly, like, I know people say, well, weren't they racist? When they were more curious than racist. I ran into
Yeah.
way more racism here in the States than I ever did in Europe. And I think when you open yourself up to getting to know someone really on a very basic level, which is
Mm-hmm.
how you speak and communicate with each other,
Mm-hmm.
there's no room for anything else, because you learn to know that person inside and out. And when you can communicate and you
Mm-hmm.
show respect for the languages and the countries you're visiting, it makes people more apt to embrace you, because a lot of other cultures learn English and then come here and they attempt to speak it. But unfortunately, some of us don't take that same toll, especially, you know, I'm fortunate that being a Black woman, that I had these experiences and I don't take them lightly, and I know people don't. But
Mhm.
I also think that we are responsible for our own learning and growing. And if we want to do something, we know we can do it. We can do all things. And I think that more people should take the opportunity to learn languages. There's so many
Mhm.
ways to learn now. Online courses,
Mhm.
there's apps, there's anything and everything that can teach you everything you could want to know. And I think it will make you a better person. I just firmly believe that people that know more than one language are better people inherently in business, in life, in relationships, in everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. So now that was the B side of the mixtape. Now we're gonna bring it to the A side. And you've already talked you've already talked a lot about your language learning journey so far.
Yes.
I feel like you've probably answered a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask.
That's because I like to talk.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. Um, I mean, the Foreign Service Institute, and the thing is, I actually wanted to work at this. I always wanted to work at the United Nations. I
Me too.
actually, I always wanted to work at the United Nations. Like even in high school, I used to do Model UN and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And because I was going to high school here in Germany, they actually went to The Hague, Netherlands, and they did
Oh
like
yeah.
a big simulation. I unfortunately wasn't able to go, and everybody came back was like, "Oh my God, it was amazing!" And I was just like, "Yeah, I'm sure."
Yeah, I think I may have done one or two of those myself. It's been so long ago, child. I'm old now, so I don't remember half the stuff I did. But you should. It's never too late. I thought about going back to it, but I
hmm
think there's an age limit. So I think I might have missed that cutoff. But you should. You absolutely should do that.
Yeah, because I saw that, and then I was like, "Oh, I don't know if my German's good enough." And then I will have to get back, like basically get back into French, get back into Spanish, and get those up to speed. And then I was like, "Okay." And I saw about the Foreign Service because actually there was a guy from when I was I was living in Atlanta for a little while, and I was going to
Hmm.
Clayton State. And there was a guy that was like a representative, but he was based at Morehouse,
Okay.
and he came, like, they would come to, the different colleges, whatever. So he came to our class. I think I was in like American government or some kind of class, I don't remember, but he came and spoke. And he
Hmm.
was talking about it, and I was like, he was talking about the process, how the process is like 8-level process, and if you mess up at one level, you got to start all over again. And I was just getting anxiety listening to him, like, oh my God. And he was like,
It's real.
sometimes
You should not be anxious, because those levels they speak of are probably not as hard as you think they are. I don't remember,
hmm
but I remember taking them, and a
hmm
lot of it is just the basics, the pronouns, the all that stuff. How do I get here? How do I get there? Wo ist die Toilette? you know,
Yeah,
Toilette
yeah.
bitte. You know, you can do those things. You can do it. Especially if you are immersed in the culture right now in Germany. Now is the best time to take that course because it's already in you.
Mhm.
You know, so do it.
Yeah. Well, if there's anyone else watching that's interested in having a career in foreign service, United Nations, anything like
Do
that,
it.
so consular services or whatever, do it. Do it, do it, do it.
Do it, do it,
Um
do it.
do
Do it today.
it today. Don't delay. but
Exactly.
um but yeah, so I just was like, oh my goodness. I was just mesmerized by that because that's something I always wanted to do. Besides the Foreign Service Institute, I mean, you said you were modeling in German and in English. Like you had so many opportunities just because of exposure to another language. I just think that that's amazing.
And I have to thank my parents for that, because my mother was very adamant, like I said, about us living in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you usually go to military bases back then, families don't travel as much with their soldiers as they used to then. But,
Mm-hmm.
back when I was growing up, we went to every base that my dad did. So if my mother made sure that even on base, she took me off base to be involved in the community. So like I said, I was doing modeling and theater in the German community and on base. And I was, in a German band, marching band. I, my mother just made sure that I was involved. And I think that's key even now for people that are here in the States and not overseas. There are so many programs that allow for immersive culture and things like that, that you should take your children, take yourself, take your family members, and go to, a high school that's hosting an international night,
Mm-hmm.
a college that is having a play, you know, in French. Just go. You may not understand it, but one thing that transcends all of that is love, kindness, peace, and you'll get that from those languages and from immersing yourself in something other than what you know. Excuse me. Because if I wonder sometimes where I would be if my parents had not um traveled the way they did, made sure their family went with them, and continually took assignments abroad. I don't think I would be as well-rounded, as empathetic, as open and kind if that had not happened. Some
Yeah.
people say that's a personality trait. I also think it's a learned trait. And learning languages allowed me to just be who I wanted to be with whoever I was with. If that I was with my German friends, I didn't ever feel left out because I
Right.
could communicate with them. If I was
Right.
speaking French, Italian, Spanish, whatever it may be, it just allowed me the opportunity to get to know other people on a very basic level.
Yes.
Look at you. Look
I
at you.
agree. I'm just so happy. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like this is I hope nobody gets offended. This is like the best story yet. Especially because
Oh,
because some of that was like my life. Like I was listening to you speak and I'm like, are we the same person?
right, right. And the funny thing is, growing up, I thought I was the only one.
Right.
And
And this
when
is
you,
why I
when I
started the community.
right, and then when I saw your thing, and I was like, wow, there is somebody else out here like me that looks like me and does the same thing I do. That is hard to find. That is not easy. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story and for doing what you're doing. Language Bay, you have done it. You have done it. And you have brought the world, a little bit of the world, into other people's homes, and that's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You're gonna make me
I'm
cry.
probably gonna have to cut this short because I have another Zoom call to do
Oh no,
in
no
preparation for my
problem.
show.
No problem. I don't know if you have at least 2 minutes, but one of the things I will
Absolutely.
ask is before you go, what
Hmm.
are 3 tips that you will offer people who are learning languages? I mean, you already gave so much, but which would you say the 3 most important ones out of everything you said?
The three most important things I would say is just be open to it.
Hmm.
Nobody learns anything in one day, so be
Hmm.
patient with yourself while you're learning.
Hmm.
Immerse yourself, join a meetup group, join a language group, join so that you can actually practice. Those would be my three things: is just open yourself up to it, practice, immerse yourself, and you'll find that those three things will allow you not only to learn languages, but to learn more about yourself. Because like you said, I thought I was the only one, and I thought there was something wrong with me sometimes because I could pick these things up and run with them, and other people thought that was strange. So I thought there was something wrong with me. There's
Yeah.
nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. Well, there's a few
No.
things, but that's not one of them. So I just tell people all the time, just do it. Just do it. And you'll find too that if you want to travel, if you want to go to other places, you will feel more confident and comfortable and safe by knowing the language. Because there's nothing like when you know something, you know, then you have all the confidence in the world. So just do it.
All right. Well, thank you. First of all, I just have to thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. You had such a great story. I know that it's going to inspire, it's going to encourage, it's going to motivate so many people who watch this. So thank you
I hope
so
so.
much. I know it
I
will. I
hope
know
so.
it will.
And I'll gladly talk to any of your followers and listeners or you again anytime.
Thank
Vielen Dank.
you. Ich
Merci.
danke. Ich danke.
Nein, nein. Alles gut. Vielen Dank. And, I appreciate you and what you're doing. And I encourage you, just don't let anything stop you. I encourage you, take that test and do what you have been created to do. Okay? You're a beautiful
Alrighty.
young soul. I wish you all the best. And I am always here for you. Even if you need to, practice your languages, whatever, I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And oh man, I am so grateful. Thank you so much. And I don't want to keep you again. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you. To all the listeners out there, vielen Dank. And I wish you all the best. Let's see, what else can I say? Bon chance, you know, and just do it. Just take the time, take the energy, take that motivation, and put it into something that will enrich your life. Languages.
Alrighty. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, smash that like button. Also, if you feel that anyone would love to read this or hear this, or you just want to share this, please, by all means, share it. Again, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and also hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified each and every time I drop that heat. See you next time. Besitos. Language, babe.
Besitos.